The Summer Olympics only come every 4 years, as does the publicity for many sports like wrestling. Today, we talk about wrestling not because of the American that stands on the podium at the Olympics, but because that American will potentially never stand on an Olympic podium ever again come the year 2020. The International Olympic Committee's executive board voted to drop wrestling from the 2020 Olympic Games earlier this week. Wrestlers from Gainesville and Buchholz high schools will compete this weekend at the Florida State Wrestling Tournament, knowing their dreams of becoming an Olympic champion may never stand a chance. Rylan Wagner, the head coach of the Gainesville High School wrestling team, explains how this decision by the International Olympic Committee will hurt all levels of the sport.
Worry more along the lines of it affecting our sport in general. Okay, well, they don't have it in the Olympics. Okay, now we're not having it at Division I programs. Okay, now we don't need to have it at the high school level.
For now, Wagner says kids are going to have to shift their dreams to a different level of wrestling.
There's still the World Championships, and so there's still things that you can focus on. But I think the Olympics is one of those things that we've kind of, as a sport, without a professional league, it's one of those things we've kind of hung our hats on, being an Olympic champion. And so it'll be tough, for some of those kids they're going to just have to shift their focus and their dreams toward something else.
The IOC Executive Board based their decision to remove wrestling off of 39 different criteria, including the lack of popularity and TV ratings wrestling brings in. Jeff Davis, a former UF wrestler and member of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, says just the opposite.
Wrestling, it's growing and growing. In high school and college sports, it's really becoming huge. We've got a problem right now for the NCAA. The last 7 or 8 years, it's been in a 20,000 plus seat arena and selling out. This year it's in a 12,000 seat arena and nobody can get tickets. And it's just been people are banging on the doors trying to find ways to get it. I'm trying to find my tickets. My sources of tickets can't get me tickets this year for the first. I'm in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame and all these other things. I can't get tickets.
Davis explains how wrestling has been part of the Olympics since the first modern games, and he believes this decision is a disappointment to the entire wrestling community.
It was one of the original Olympic sports in 1896, and if you go back to the very beginning of wrestling, beginning of the Olympics, some people say it was the number one or the first Olympic sport. I would suggest it was probably some running events and some combat events. That was what the first Olympics was, because they were soldiers, and that was the milieu that they were in. So it's spitting in the face of a lot of history over a long period of time.
Davis says this decision will prevent the front runners of wrestling from ever being able to compete at a competition as exciting as the Olympics.
If, in fact, this does take place, what I think you will see is the United States will put very, very little effort, if any, into competing in international competition. It'll be a throwaway. Right now, we've got some of the greatest athletes competing in wrestling that are 24 to 32 years old. And those guys, there's not a lot of them, but they are great athletes, great competitors, leaders in our sport. They won't have a place to really wrestle. It's certainly not the Olympics. There'll always be the World Championships, and there'll always be a certain level of competition that will attract people to international competition, but it won't be what it's been with the goal of being an Olympian. Being an Olympian in wrestling is the pinnacle of our sport.
With the Florida State Wrestling Championships this weekend, Gainesville head coach Rylan Wagner says that despite this news, his kids will always wrestle because of their passion for the sport.
For all of us that are in wrestling, we're doing it for the love of the sport. We enjoy the one-on-one competition and the valuable life lessons that the training teaches you. And so I think, I would focus more on that. And I do, most of the time at our high school level, we're getting kids that join in 9th or 10th grade, and they're just trying to be the best that they can be, and and for some guys that's qualifying for the Florida State tournament, and some guys that's becoming a Florida State champion, and then for some wrestlers it was becoming an Olympic champion.
Wagner says that this decision to cut wrestling hits close to home for him, and he feels that this passion will fuel the disappointment of wrestlers around the world.
It's just another blow to our sport here. That it cuts deep. It hurts.
The International Olympic Committee Executive Board will meet in May to decide whether wrestling will be reinstated as an Olympic sport in the 2020 Games. Wrestling is vying for a spot among 8 other sports, including baseball, softball, karate, squash, roller sports, sport climbing, wakeboarding, and wushu. For Florida's